right, what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. I've got a couple of interesting stories for you guys today. The first story that I've got for you guys today, big Ramy. Ramy apparently is becoming a little bit more of a celebrity in his home country of Egypt. This latest post that he put up, which one of my subscribers was kind enough to roughly translate for me. This post apparently says something along the lines of, the international champion Big Ramy just had a contract signed with the producer Ahmad Samir for the main role in a huge artistic show, which means a film or a TV series, which will be the first of its kind in the Middle East. So essentially this post is saying that Ramy is beginning a career in acting and has signed a contract to be the star of a show, essentially revolving around him in Egypt. So obviously this is pretty cool for Ramy, but I think this is pretty cool for bodybuilding in general, because typically when you see bodybuilders get acting roles, number one, they're generally not an active Mr. Olympia champion. It's very rare that a Mr. Olympia would get a role during his reign as Olympia. Ramy is an active professional competitive bodybuilder. He's going to be competing again in 2022. He's going to be prepping again within the next year. So that's not typical. And then the other part of that that's not very typical is the bodybuilder actually being the star of the show, if that translation is accurate, of course, but I believe it is. Typically, a bodybuilder is relegated to kind of a typecast role where they're a background character. They're like a trainer at a gym. They're like a meathead in a mall or something like that. Generally, bodybuilders don't get the best roles. They're generally very typecast into a certain type of muscular dude, henchman role or something like that. So if Ramy is in fact the star of this show and the show kind of revolves around him, I think that's pretty cool as well. I know that Phil Heath has been pursuing acting recently with Danny Garcia, 7 Bucks Productions. Obviously, you've had bodybuilders like Arnold Schwarzenegger pursue careers in bodybuilding very successfully. Lou Ferrigno was a pretty successful actor. And a lot of you guys being English-speaking and probably American-based, we're more familiar with Hollywood. We're more familiar with the guys that have starred in movies over here. But from what I'm hearing, this is like the Egyptian equivalent of going Hollywood. This is like a really big deal. So I want to start out the video with that. And congratulations to Ramy on apparently landing a really huge role. Now, next up in the news, Quint Beastwood. We just saw him compete at the Romania show. Quint is actually getting ready to compete in another couple of weeks because he wants that Olympia qualification. He just took top 5 at that Romania show. But we're going to be seeing him again in just a couple of weeks. He's going to be competing at the Toronto Pro Super Show, which I believe is going to be the first weekend of December. I think it's December 5th. So I think that Quint actually looked pretty good in Romania. I think, one of the things I would like to see is for him to tighten up a little bit for Toronto, but I do think he looked pretty good. His conditioning looked good. Obviously, his shape, his structure are his really strong points. Very aesthetic guy for a men's open bodybuilder. He's a much taller men's open bodybuilder, so he stands out in that regard. Probably down the line for him to win more shows, he probably still needs to realistically fill out a little bit more and put on a little bit more size for a guy with a frame like he's got and the height that he's got. It's just going to be one of those scenarios where it maybe makes him look a little bit lankier because he is so tall. He might have a little bit of extra filling out to do to compensate for that. But that's more of a conversation to be had for like his next off season. As far as improving for the Toronto show, it's coming a little drier, a little tighter. But so far, I've been very impressed by Quentin, and I'm really excited to see what the future holds for him. I think he's a bright young star in bodybuilding. I think, the future's bright. Now, next up in the news, the latest physique update from Carlos Thomas Jr. This is the guy that I did the video on. I believe right now he is probably the best amateur in the NPC. He's probably the best amateur bodybuilder right now. He's actually going to be competing this weekend to nationally qualify so he can go on and compete in nationals and attempt to earn his pro card. So this is one of the most recent updates. Time to bring in the fullness and dry out before Saturday. It's game time, Carlos Thomas Jr. And this was posted by Full Access Fitness. Carlos is a guy, I'm really excited to see him compete. I really think he's got what it takes to earn a pro card. I think we're probably going to see him in the IFBB in the very near future. I don't think it's going to be a very long time before he eventually does get that pro card. Whether or not it's this run at Nationals or maybe another one. Who knows? But this is the latest update I've seen. The guy's got crazy proportions. When you talk about a bodybuilder that's got roundness and fullness, when you use round and full to describe a muscle belly, to describe a bodybuilder, this guy is a prime example of what that means. Now, I'll go over to this. This was a couple weeks ago, so this isn't as recent, but this front double bicep here, when you talk about round, full muscle bellies, especially the biceps, this is like the picture. You know, if you had that word fullness for bodybuilding in the encyclopedia, this would be the picture that you want next to what a full round muscle belly looks like. Not his belly, not his stomach, but the roundness and fullness of the muscle bellies, especially in his arms. This guy's a perfect example of that. And again, really excited to see him compete. Obviously, we're going to cover the results of that, so we'll probably have those tomorrow. But definitely keep your eye on Carlos Thomas Jr. Now, next up in the news, a physique update from Keone Pearson. He has the caption there, Lean Days. He's posted several posts lately talking about the fact that it's time for him to actually drop some size to get back into classic physique. So as you guys know, Keone recently announced that he's going to be switching back to classic. He made the switch over to 212 back-to-back. After he switched to 212, he won back-to-back Chicago Pros, qualifying him for the 212 Olympia 2 years in a row. He skipped the first one, competed in this one, did not do as well as he hoped. I believe he placed like 14th at the 212 Olympia this year. So now he's switching back to classic, and we're seeing these physique updates because it is time for him to strip size back off. Like I said, he had to put on size to get into 212 because 212 is just 212 and under. It doesn't really matter how tall you are in 212 per se, because the weight class is the same for everybody in that division. The weight cap is the same, whereas with classic physique, it's by height. Your height does matter, and your height is what limits you. And I believe Keone is limited by almost 20 pounds compared to what he weighs in 212. Actually, maybe even more than that. So it's going to be interesting to see kind of this transformation from the 212 version of Keone back to classic physique. Almost as interesting as it's been to see him transform himself into a 212 bodybuilder. And I think ultimately that might be the healthiest decision for Keone, because he's going to be competing and walking around a lot lighter than he would be in 212 in classic physique. And I think overall, if you're talking about longevity, you're talking about a really young guy, really early on in his career, Keone. We want to see him around for a long time. We want to see him healthy, and he's going to be competing well under 200 pounds and probably walking around under 200 pounds, which I think is going to be a lot easier on his body in the long run. So best of luck to Keone. Of course, I'm really excited to see what he's going to be able to do when he switches back to classic physique. I mean, keep in mind, when he left classic, he was at the top. He was a first call-out classic physique Olympia guy when he switched to 212. So it's not like he's going to come back just a bum. He's going to come back and be very competitive. And the final story that I've got for you guys today. A lot of people have been sending me this physique update of a relatively lesser-known bodybuilder, Steven Didashak. I hope I pronounced that correctly, but he posted this physique update, this most muscular here, and of course, he's standing underneath the goon light. He looks incredibly impressive. By all metrics, he just looks crazy in this pose, and a lot of people have been sending this to me and just saying, you know, man, this guy's got some potential. Look how crazy he looks. And I was reading some of the messages of people that were sending me this update, and I got to agree. This is a really impressive physique update. And I wanted to give it some spotlight in this video. This guy looks insane, and I wanted to get your guys' opinion in the comment section down below. I believe he's prepping for a show right now. He's not a pro. He's an amateur. So because we did talk about, we talked about Carlos Thomas Jr. earlier in this video, this might be another amateur to look out for. This is a really impressive most muscular. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. And that's going to wrap it up for the video today, guys. I hope you did, in fact, enjoy it. Please give it a thumbs up if you did. It helps out a lot with the algorithm, so like the video if you enjoyed it. It's free, it's easy, and it really does help out. So thank you, guys. Subscribe if you haven't already. Love you. Appreciate you. Nick Strength and Power, signing out.